Hello and welcome to Cheese, a Healthy Fruit, a podcast where two sisters reminisce on growing up in rural Wisconsin. I'm Cydel.
I'm Milton.
I'm Milton. You're not Jade. Everybody, welcome to the studio. My dad, Milton.
Hello, everyone.
Jade couldn't be here today. She wasn't feeling well, so we are just recording the two of us. So what are you going to tell us about today?
Well, I figured to talk a little bit about my childhood and some animals growing up in Wisconsin. So, yeah, I grew up in the 70s, and I was on a rural farm that was, we weren't near any even little towns. It was a half hour to drive to about everything. And we were on one farm and we were moving to another farm. And one of the interesting stories is we went down there and moved some young stock there because our dairy cows, because the barn had burnt on the old place, so the dairy cows were actually on somebody else's farm. So we moved the young stock there, and we were down there and got them situated and left the male German Shepherd dog we had at the time there, and my dad put him in the barn. And so as we're leaving, I'm watching, and there's a dog barking out a window in the barn, and the yard full of cattle keeping him under control. And so as a 4-year-old, that seemed like a very funny situation.
Yeah, kind of the opposite of what's supposed to happen.
Yes. Eventually we let him go free and stuff once we lived there, but we weren't living there yet. We were still at the old place. So it was just an interesting thing for a little kid. I thought that was hilarious as a kid.
Yeah.
Then we got the dairy cows there, got ourselves moved there and that kind of thing. So then we brought the female German Shepherd there.
Yes.
And nothing to say about the male German Shepherd that we had in the barn. He was absolutely worthless. Whenever he was young, he never got trained properly to handle cattle. So he would actually go after the head of the cattle, and he was more. There's other times we locked him up too when we were trying to herd cattle, and
he was better at being herded by cattle.
It was better the cattle herded him, and then the female, she was really good at herding cattle. We could go out. I could go out as a 5-year-old and go get the cattle, and she would just keep them moving, and we would just get back in towards the barnyard or wherever we were gathering them together to do the inventory and give them some different feed and stuff, making sure they're getting all their feed they need. Yeah.
So what about the female German Shepherd?
So, of course, we had a male and a female dog. So we had something interesting happen. The winter, we ended up in our main porch. It wasn't really the front porch. It was kind of a side porch, I guess. But our front porch was kind of a rotten old thing, so it wasn't really safe to use. But so we were. This is our main porch into our house. But it was enclosed too, and then Mom put up plastic to make it a little bit more sealed better, because it still was a porch in an old house that was built in the late 1800s originally, with some additions after that. So who knows how old the porch actually was. In the 1920s, the farm was a spectacular place, but then but we had the puppies born there, and so. They had a heat lamp there to help the dog to keep the puppies warm. And I remember those little puppies so we'd go out there and get in trouble for being out in t-shirt and and stuff like that in the winter, out there playing with the puppies as they were. It was late winter, early spring. And then my parents gave away most of the puppies because people, of course, wanted German Shepherds, especially on farms and stuff. They're pretty good, in the name. They are shepherds, if you train them. And
do you remember how many puppies there were?
I do not remember. Yeah. That's so long ago. The 70s are a long time ago.
Yeah. There were a few, or?
Yeah, it was quite a few. It was pretty good litter there. And then So we were out there playing with the puppies, and slowly they disappeared. Of course, you know, we of course fell in love with everyone because we were little kids, and then eventually we were down to a female that was probably about half grown. I would say half size. It wasn't quite up to the full adult, but not the full size it's going to get, but it wasn't even to that yet. And but she was getting up there, probably maybe even 3/4 size. And all of a sudden, all we had was the male German Shepherd around, and all of us were confused. What happened to the other two? And found out my dad had sold them to somebody, the two females to somebody that was like came and did stuff on the farm and stuff and needed money. And the German Shepherds, of course, were valuable, and so he sold them, and all we had then was the male, and which wasn't that useful. But then we had they went off to somebody's place, and then so we missed them, but they both were good herders. Even the puppy she followed mom. Mom trained her well. When we took her out and stuff. So that was kind of a sad thing. And then the next, then about that time, just before we left the farm, we went to, my parents got a restaurant because the farm wasn't working out. The dairy cows weren't producing. So we my parents got a restaurant. And so we moved to a different town and left the farm, but we had beef cattle there. They sold the dairy cattle and had an auction for most of the equipment, and then we just kept some of the equipment, and then had beef cattle and pigs. But when we were leaving, we had to get rid of the pigs, except for we had this, I guess I should go back a little bit.
Okay.
My grandpa had this runt, red pig.
Oh.
So it was a little runt. It wasn't getting any food, so my grandma and grandpa were feeding them in the kitchen, and my mom had always said that she wanted to get one if there ever was a runt that wasn't going to survive. And so we took it home to our farm, and then we were raising him as a kind of a pet, and then we had him down in the pen with other pigs as he got bigger. But at first he was on a leash in our yard just like a dog, and he would dig up the yard and get all the he actually found a dog chain for us that was in the yard from a previous owner. And so, which was nice, because then we used that dog chain. I believe we even still have it today. But
so the pig found the chain for himself?
Yeah, it dug it up, and so we put it on him. It was hooked to the house, so it was handy. It was really handy, yeah. And so he was in the yard, and then we also had Shetland ponies. And so up to this point, we had Trigger and Bullet, and if anybody is a Western fan of old Western movies, was it, I don't remember, was it Roy Rogers and Gene something? Anyway, it's way before, it's before my time. I like watching them, but I can't remember the names. But and they sang too. They were Western singers, not country. That was the one. That was the country Western. Anyway, they had, we had ponies that were named after, because I assume my dad watched them and listened to them and must have liked them, or my mom, or both, or whatever. But so when I was really young, we had Trigger and Bullet, and Bullet was supposed to be mine, and my brother's was Trigger. Bullet got sick and passed away when we were up at the other farm, and then when we were down on our new farm, Trigger moved down, and then we could actually ride Trigger with a saddle, Shetland pony. And then we got Fluffy, which is an interesting name for a horse. But Fluffy was never trained to be ridden. Somebody maybe harness trained her, we don't know, but we never had any harness stuff, so we didn't ever use her that way. But we did play with her, and she was really friendly. And what she was doing is, when my little brother was a baby, she would actually stand over him in the sandbox as my parents were doing chores around the farm. She would stand right there and protect him. And like one time he was crying in the house because he was left in the house, and my mom figured she could do something quick. And he was crying in the house, so Fluffy came to the barn to let my mom know that he was crying in the house. So as soon as the pony showed up there, she headed back to the house, and so she was kind of a watchdog. She was one of our watchdogs, kind of like the pig.
And she was kind of his horse.
Yeah. And so we gave Fluffy, we gave her this, it was a cement block with one of those eye hook things in the top of it. And Fluffy and Trigger could lift that thing up and move it around. Mm-hmm. So they would lift their heads, and the chain was short enough they could they could drag it, I guess is the best way to say it. It was long enough chain that they could move around it and stuff, but then they could move it slowly around. Okay. So they couldn't really run off, but they could move around. And so they were our lawnmowers.
Nice.
For a little while.
Nice.
And because we didn't have any working lawnmowers, and my dad was working a full-time job and trying to get the restaurant going and stuff. Mm-hmm. So, but by then, Trigger, something happened to Trigger. We didn't have Trigger anymore. And then I don't know if they sold him or what happened there, because we were tight on money. So it could be, feeding a pony that we didn't have any value. And he was rideable, so it might have been that he found somebody to buy him. And so we had just had Fluffy. We had Big Red, the pig, and we had a few beef cattle that were on the farm when we moved to town, to this rental house we lived in for a winter. And so my dad would go back every day and feed the cattle and feed the pony and feed the Big Red. Big Red and broke out of his pen right away. And so basically, if you came to our farm, which the road was gated so that the cattle couldn't get out, not really to stop a pig, but on our whole, I forgot how many acres it was, but it was quite a few acres, hundreds acres farm. We had something like 10 beef cattle, a Shetland pony, and a pig wandering around by themselves all winter long. Yeah. Through the cornfields, through the woods, whatever. And like I said, my dad would come home and guide them back to the barn and give them some hay and stuff like that from there. Yeah. But then they go back out into the fields and eat. And of course, the pig would dig into the field, and the pony and the cattle would eat whatever they could above the snow. But so we came back, and Big Red was very big a year later, and the Shetland pony was still friendly and everything. So that was an interesting story that I thought was interesting. But the other thing to it was, so was the male German Shepherd dog, which I don't remember his name at all. It was so long ago. But here he was. He was in there with the pony, the pig, and the cattle. Nice. That was his family. Motley crew. And they all stayed together. The pig just found his new herd, was the pony and the cattle. And the pony and cattle do pretty good together, in my experience. And they just roamed around the property and got fed. Of course, we had some cats and stuff around too. And then my dad would feed them as well, and he'd feed the dog. And then when we got back to the farm, then we got back there, and then my dad got some more beef cattle, some more pigs again and stuff. And Big Red, of course, he found his way to being bacon. And but we had the Shetland pony around. She was helpful for her, helping with the cattle and stuff too. And she would help lead them back to the pen. And when we got back to the farm after that winter being gone, then my brother right away volunteered, because we had a wood heating house, so we had to get a lot of wood, and then we also had these pigs down in the pig barn, and we had these cattle wandering around in the fields all winter, and then they'd have their pasture and stuff in the summer, and then we were cropping all the fields, and then selling hay and feed and selling corn and oats and stuff like that. So whatever we grew, we sold a lot of it, and some of it went to the cattle and the horse and the pigs. But so then my older brother, he right away said he wanted to take care of the pigs, and I'm like, oh, that sounds good, and because I kind of liked working with the cattle. And so basically one thing I didn't realize right away, but works really good for my personality, was that the cattle would be way out in the field after we opened the fields up for them. Yeah. And so I would have to walk a long ways out into the field and get the cattle. And once I got to them, the pony would come over to get petted, and even some of the cattle that were friendly would come over so you could actually pet them. And then we would they would just start walking back. And throughout the years, we had different, not really trained dogs. They weren't quite as bad as that German Shepherd because they wouldn't go after the head and disturb them. They were a little bit more helpful with the cattle.
Yeah.
And the dog would walk out with me, and we'd go get them, and we'd wander back in through the snow and everything, and get to the barn, and I'd throw some hay bales down. And in the meantime, my brother went into the pig barn, threw a bunch of corn down to the pigs, and whatever other leftovers from the house he carried down there, that kind of stuff. And then he would wander into the house and start going to our big wood shed and start throwing wood down into the basement.
Yes.
So I always considered that was a lot more work than
the wood,
than walking around in the field with the horse and the cattle, which I kind of enjoyed. So, and the dog. So it was a good trade-off, I thought. And he seemed to like his thing because he didn't have to be out in the cold. So which now he moved to Kentucky and left Wisconsin and abandoned Wisconsin, but so he still thinks it's cold.
Yeah. So did he ever figure out that he was doing more work than you?
No, he enjoyed it. He enjoyed it until we left the farm.
Nice.
That was his chore. And so yeah, he kept so we kept doing that. And that Shetland pony, we had her until we left the farm. Once us kids left the farm, my parents divorced and everything, then the Shetland pony went. And then when we of course we had another when we were back on the farm again, my dad was working a third shift job and stuff, and then we would work on the farm during the day and stuff like that. So he would come second and third shift. It would be different times of the year and different seasons, whatever, because he was working in a cheese plant, so he was making cheese. And then he would come and home, and then we'd do farming there or at my grandpa's. And so one thing that we would do a lot of is cutting wood, because the place was terrible. It had a big, huge boiler in the basement. And we went through so much wood in the winter, so we'd have to have this big wood shed and all kinds of wood behind it. And so there was a lot of work around that we'd have to do. Plus, we had all the work. We didn't have dairy cows or anything like that. That had to be constantly milked and taken care of and stuff that way. But we had beef cattle and pigs and stuff that had to be, we had to make fences. We had to fix fences. We had, so we had a lot of stuff on the farm to do. And, but at the same time, we had quite a few pets and stuff. And well, at one point we got this, again, my grandpa had a piglet that was a runt. And so we got this runt piglet, a nice white one this time instead of the first one was red, this one was white. And so we took the white one and we had him, same thing with him. We put him on the chain in the yard, and because we were using it for the dogs and stuff too. And then we named the pig Billy. I don't know why he was named Billy, but he was named Billy. And so when he was young, we let him around. We made a harness for him. And walked around with him with the harness on, and he just loved being with us. So then we were, he was big enough that my younger brother, who wasn't in school yet, he was probably 4 years old, I suppose, and he came riding him down on the leash with my mom and to meet the bus. And we met the bus right about by the pig barn. And so we got down to the pig barn, and he wasn't really a pig, he was a pet. And so he never really lived in the pig barn. He just lived in the house and the yard.
When Jade and I were kids, Mom would walk us to the end of the driveway with Jack and Max, and your mom would walk with the pig.
Only for after school. She didn't do it.
And a boy on the pig.
Yep. So then the bus driver, our afternoon bus driver, he saw that and he says, "Oh, can you have him here tomorrow? I'll bring my boys," because he had some boys that were younger than my brother. Yeah. And so my mom said, "Yeah, we can have him here." And so the next day they were down there again with the leash and the pig and my brother on him, and Yeah, it was a nice, May day, so it was nice and warm. And then, so his boys came, so they came out of the bus and they came over and they got to play with the pig and they got on the pig. And so they just thought it was so great. And of course, Billy just loved it. He loved the attention. Yeah. He was a ham, literally. And then, but he was so much fun. And he would wander around the farm with us too at times. We didn't even put a leash on him a lot of times doing chores and stuff. He'd just wander around with us. So did Big Red when we were on the farm. They just follow us along when they were young. And
just like a dog.
Oh yeah. But better behaved. And
yeah.
So yeah, he was a lot of fun. And then we had some gilts that were young, which are female young pigs. They were young, and we got them. They were younger than Billy was, but probably a few months, whatever. And so we had them down in the pig barn, and he got big enough that he needed to be in the pig barn, and
yeah.
So we took him down moved him into the pig barn, and he got to live with the gilts. Of course, he was fixed, so we weren't going to have baby pigs. We were just and And by this time, he's a pretty good sized pig because we really didn't. It wasn't safe to necessarily have him around us anymore all the time and stuff. And so we put him down there. But the interesting thing was the gilts like to get themselves out of the pen, so they'd get under the electric fence. They ground it out with a pile of dirt or something, and then they would be out of the fence. Yes. And they would wander off to the fields or wherever they thought there was food that they could enjoy.
Yeah.
And fresh grass and whatever. But not Billy. Billy would see the opportunity to get to the house. He'd come right up to the house. So he was our alarm telling us the pigs were out. So the next year he was telling us all the time that the pigs were out.
So it seems like that's maybe the secret to farming, is having one animal that is your friend, that is a pet, but it's out with the livestock. So whenever the livestock do something, they come and tell you. Like you had the Fluffy and and Billy came right over whenever something was wrong. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You don't need dogs.
They're better behaved than dogs.
Yeah.
Both ponies and pigs. But they were fun to have around, and the dogs were always there. We had different mutt dogs throughout the years, and and then the one winter, I don't remember exactly where it lines up with Billy and that, but one winter we ended up, maybe it was just before him. Oh, I know what it was. It was right after we got back, because one of the problems that happened, there was no pigs living in the pig barn, and there was then there was still corn in the corn, because the pig barn was designed with corn bins built into it, so you could feed the pigs easily, which was really nice. It would dry the corn, and then it would, and then you could just feed them the full cob of corn to them, and that's why my brother liked it so much. It was easy. It was all right there. It was all self-contained.
Yeah.
And then, so the corn was there, but there weren't any pigs because, like I said, Big Red was out wandering with their cattle out in the field with the pony. And so nobody was in that area eating it. So we moved back to the farm that first winter when we were back on the farm, when we had pigs in there again, but in the meantime, underneath the cement slab in the middle of the building, there was a place like we put wagons and stuff to help unload and to get the corn in there and stuff. And then also you could just put a wagon in there or whatever. And we even put tractors at times, depending on if we needed a spot to keep something under a roof. And that area there had a cement floor, where the rest of the pig barn and that didn't have it. It was just dirt. But that center part had the cement slab. Well, that's where rats decided to live.
Oh.
So nice. When we had no critters there, keeping the rats under control, the rats took over under that concrete, and then were out and about. So the new dog we got that year, he was worthless for cattle, all kinds of stuff, but he and then he wasn't doing anything about the rats, anything like that. But
Nice.
winter came, middle of winter came. Our neighbors, the dad lost his job, and so they moved from the place they were living next to us. They were renting a house there, and they moved to with one of their parents, one of the grandparents.
Okay.
They had I think it was 2 or 3 kids in their family, and then the parents, and so they moved away, and they had 2, I would say mid-sized dogs, mutts of some sort. I don't know exactly what mix, but they came wandering on our property all starving, and we were barely getting by. My parents' restaurant had failed.
Yeah.
The farm was struggling, and my dad was working a lot of hours to keep things going, and my mom wasn't working out of the house. She was doing stuff in the house, at home and stuff, and so they were, and we had we were still young kids and stuff. And I think my mom was sick at that time too. My mom had some problem with equilibrium and stuff like that. So we were struggling basically. And then here are these 2 dogs, 2 more mouths to feed that are of no value to us. So what we did was we really never put the dog food out any place for where they could get to it anyway, but we made sure they never got into the porch where we kept the food. Yeah. So then at night we'd bring our dog into the porch so he could be warm all night, but they were left out because they weren't ours. We hoped they'd move away. But one good thing that happened with that is those little guys were designed for rats.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden they were eating the rat population, and of course this is the middle of winter. Everything is nice and pretty white. Yeah. With blood stains.
Nice. Isn't that just wonderful?
So our whole driveway, we had this long driveway, we had a mile-long driveway, but this whole stretch up from the pig barn up to the house we'd see every once in a while, you'd see red in the white snow. Nice. And but you knew they were doing a good thing. They were killing and eating the mice or the rats, but they weren't. And these things were good-sized rats. They ate a lot of corn. They were healthy rats. And nice. Luckily they didn't get up to the house or anything like that. Yeah. And we had cats in the barn and in the house and wandering the farm, but they mustn't have gone after the rats or whatever. Yeah. I don't know what the deal was.
Maybe the rats got too big.
But then the rats were too big by then. They were pretty good size, so the cats weren't going after them, I guess. And maybe they did some. Maybe they just couldn't catch them too. But then our dog saw them those other ones catching and eating the rats.
Oh, so then he figured it out.
So then, of course, he wasn't hungry, so he would catch them and kill them. Oh, okay. So then we not only have blood stains, but we'd have a dead rat every once in a while on the driveway. But by spring, we had no rat problem. Nice. But he became a good rat dog. Him and those other 2. The other 2 passed. They didn't make it through the winter because they got too cold. But we really couldn't do anything about it. We didn't have enough money to feed what we had, so it was tough to see them. As a kid, especially, you don't understand fully why. Yeah. Why your dog is gets come in and those dogs don't. Yeah. Yeah, but I understood that we didn't have money, so I from that point of view, I accepted it as a kid and stuff. And our dog did well. He was doing okay. And he was a great dog. And like I said, he was really friendly and stuff. Like one time I was out getting the cattle in the summertime. So we went walking out, and it was kind of a reddish, brownish dog. I don't know, kind of mutt thing. And pretty much everything we had was mutts because you could get them for free. And so we would. They're
better anyway.
Yeah. So we would wander off. We wandered off off getting cattle, and I saw some cattle going up into the woods and stuff. So I went wandering up in there, and then all of a sudden, and I was probably about 9 years old. All of a sudden, I couldn't figure out which way was the right way to go, and I was completely, my clothing, everything was hooked into raspberry, black raspberry, whatever, thorny, really long thorny briar type of a situation. And here I was stuck in this thing, and I was trying to get myself out of it. And then once I got out of it, I didn't know exactly where I was because I couldn't hear anybody anymore. Yeah. And So I was going to, just basically follow the edge of the woods and the field and figure out where I end up. Eventually, I either end up with a fence or I end up with road or something. And here comes the dog, comes wandering back from, once everybody and the cattle were back at the barn, everybody's wondering what happened to me. And the dog came wandering back. He was wondering what happened to me too. And came wandering back and got me and led me back to the barn.
Nice.
So dogs are good too. They just, But the one thing I never really appreciated was when I was really little. The dogs were bigger than me.
Okay.
And my older brother, he liked sharing his ice cream with the dog. So they would have an ice cream cone, and the dog would be licking one side, and he'd be licking the other.
Yes.
And in my opinion of that as a little kid was, once that dog's tongue touched that ice cream, I threw it on the ground and said, "It's yours." I didn't touch it anymore. I'd rather not have the ice cream than to have dog slobber all over.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah. So now you know that you can have pets of any kind. I mean, we of course we talked about when we had Jackie and Fallon on. We talked about how they consider all of their cows pets, and you guys, of course, didn't seem to consider all of them pets. But you had your pets out of the herd.
Well, yeah, we had at times we had too many numbers to really be pets.
Yes.
But at the same time, we knew all of them.
Yeah.
We knew which ones were the ones that were, which ones we had to go, like the pigs getting out, which ones had to get nose rings.
Yeah.
So that they would quit getting out. And then also what cattle were doing whatever. And
yeah.
And we felt bad when we'd lose one because of some kind of sickness or something, pinched nerve or something. And not only was it a financial burden that you lose, food source that you could make money off of, which is why you farm.
Yeah.
And it, but you also lose you kind of knew them since they were little.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, this has been Choose a Healthy Fruit. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Cheese, a Healthy Fruit. Our cover art is by MJ Hennessey. Our theme song is by Melina Marchese. You can find her at melinamarchese.com. Follow the podcast on Instagram at cheese_a_healthy_fruit, Jade at Jade Powers with an extra S, and Cydel at Cydel Powers, spelled Cydel. If you have any questions or want to submit a story from your childhood, email us at cheeseahealthyfruit@gmail.com. Sources can be found in the show notes. You can find Cheese, a Healthy Fruit wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Subscribe to Cheese, a Healthy Fruit and leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app. See you next time. Bye-bye.